All right, well, good morning. First of all, thanks everybody for being here. This is my little script here in my itinerary, but we're gonna go off of script for a little while because as I was getting ready this morning, I just really felt inspired to, in the famous words of Jerry Maguire from, what was the name of the movie? Jerry Maguire movie. He was an agent, sports agent.
That's the name of the movie, isn't it?
Sure. Yeah. Jerry Maguire. Anyway, help me to help you. Okay? Help me to help you. And what I mean by that is this. I need content. I am literally the only news reporter for the Victor Valley. We do have a reporter. We have a sports reporter, Jose Quintero, who covers sports. He does a great job, but he does sports. We have another guy named Charlie McGee, who is based out of Barstow. He's more of an investigative reporter. So technically, I am the only news reporter from Johnson Valley to the LA County line, down to the Cajon Pass to Primm, Nevada. That's me. Okay? We will talk about how we got here in just a minute. Now, a couple of things. I need content. When somebody calls and says, hey, call me back, I might have a story for you. I don't have time to call you back. But if somebody calls and tells me, hey, guess what? I'm releasing a book. I have already written the press release and I've got photos. Can I send them to you? My answer is absolutely yes, because it'll take me 5 minutes to put it in and it'll go on the website. So, write down my email. Ready? Write this down. It is R. De La Cruz, R-D-E-L-A-C-R-U-Z, R. De La Cruz at Victor, dailypress.com. That's R. De La Cruz at vvdailypress.com. If you have a story, okay, I believe it was Carly or somebody who's working on a story. Once that story is ready to go, once it's ready to go, it's published, let me know. Give me all the information. You guys are writers, right? So that means you guys write. Give me content, give me photos, and I will get it in the paper. We need content, okay? And again, because I'm so busy, I do not have time for, I was wondering if I could talk to you and kind of throw some ideas. No, I don't. When the world is falling apart, when you've got people drowning in the Mojave River, I can't talk to you about your cooking recipe that you want to get in the Daily Press. I can't. On the way here, 5 minutes before I left, a friend of mine, a good friend of mine, contacted me and said, hey, did you see this? And I looked and I'm like, oh my goodness. Now I had a choice. I can call Bob and say, Bob, sorry dude, you're on your own. I gotta write this story. Because this is technically national news. I had to reach out to one of my many editors who do a fantastic job, by the way, outside of the high desert, somewhere in central or northern California, to help me with this story. And I said, this is a big story. Can you please work on it? Former Adelanto mayor agrees to plead guilty to wire fraud charge for accepting bribes in support of commercial marijuana activity. The former mayor of Adelanto, which is Rich Kerr, by the way, has agreed to plead guilty to a federal criminal charge for accepting more than $57,000 in bribes and kickbacks in exchange for approving ordinances authorizing commercial marijuana activity within the city of Adelanto. That comes courtesy of the United States Attorney's Office, Central District of California. So, do I come speak, or do I write this story? Or do I reach out to my editor? I had to reach out to my editor. This story had to be told. We have to get this thing out. I'm off today. But because I live here, my family moved to this area, I think 1902, 1903. Wow. We have been in this area for over 100 years. It is my responsibility. I feel it's an obligation to inform my people who live in this area about what is happening. Because people say, well, you can get into a job, can't you? Yeah, I can. I've been offered plenty of jobs. How many of you guys Okay, here's a question for you, $1 million question. You're making money, you're making really good money, but you hate your job, you hate it. Every time you wake up, you loathe it. You just hope that a meteor strikes your business and it closes for good. And somebody goes, tell you what, we'll pay you $1 less, and it'll be a job that you love. $5 less, and you'll love it. You'll go home, no stress or anything. The majority of people that I spoke to said, I will make less to do stuff, to work at a job that I love. And that's what I do. I love to write. There's two things that I do. Somebody said, I just opened up an app earlier today. It was a neighborhood app, and finally found an electrician. And the electrician that I reached out to, I said, hey, let's talk this week. And he said to me, and I quote, I don't take any days off. I work 7 days a week. And I said, so do I. Because besides working 55 hours a week, almost 60 hours a week for the Daily Press, I also pastor a church in Hesperia, okay? Do I get paid? Bill, do I get paid? No, I don't get paid. Why? It's a calling. You love to do it. So whether it's writing, whether it's construction, whether it's, woodworking, whatever, do your passion. But going back to, help me help you. Send me content. Send me content. I'm going to read something to you real quick. This lady was on top of it. Barstow author pens friendly alligator-themed children's book. Barstow resident, come on phone. Barstow resident, Ms. Sam Sansom thinks it's a great idea to buy your child an alligator for Christmas. Well, at least an illustrated version of one. The retired teacher from Central High School in Barstow, the 83-year-old Sansom has penned a children's book about her fictional alligator friend George, and the book is called George the Alligator Finds a Home. So what did she do? She sent me a press release and a photo. Now, because she did that and I had a little time, I ended up calling her to get some more quotes and find out she's like an international traveler. She's been like all over the world. So I got some photos, we put it up. Next thing you know, this is a great book, I'm buying 5 for my grandkids, and I'm doing this and I'm doing that. All because she did one thing, she reached out to me. I need you, all of you who wrote a book, all those books right there, or you're about to write a book, Carly, and anyone else in here, contact me. But send me info, send me information. When you wrote the book, where do you live, the motivation behind the book, a summary of the book. Don't give any spoilers away, but things like that, okay? So if you can, I had a gentleman years ago, it was around 2014, older gentleman, 85 years old, comes into the Daily Press with a book about this thick. I forgot his name and I couldn't find the book, by the way. He comes in, this is a true story, he comes in, he had a long last name. It was like Kalozinski, or anyways, we'll just call him Ted. He comes into the office and he says, I need to talk to Rene De La Cruz. And I said, I come up there and I'm like, he goes, I wrote a book. I was driving around and this is exactly what he told me. God told me to come here and you were gonna help me get the word out on my book. And I was like, now I'm a man of faith, but sometimes there's people that are kind of a little bit of, really? Okay. So I look at the book, and basically the story, the summary is a long time ago, he was involved in an accident, and his attorney ripped him off, and he sued the attorney, which technically you're not supposed to do, apparently, and he won. Thank you. He actually won. Now, does this mean I have a booger, or what does this mean? Oh, I'm sweating. Okay. 1 second, I'm gonna take this off. Thank you. I just need to know, like if I have a booger or if I have a...
I told you.
All right, this might help with the sweating. All right. All right. Now I feel like a preacher. All right, and God said. Okay, I got this on, I can't believe it. Okay, hang on. I always carry this on because I'll be walking through the Target parking lot and I'll see something and I'm like, that's a story. Boom, this is who I am. Where am I? The lawyer. So he comes in, I look at the book, and there's a lot of claims in here. One of the claims is that if he walks too fast, he'll pass out. And he said, yeah, so he mentions the doctor in there. Now this happened years ago, like in the 70s. So I reach out to this doctor at UCLA. Doctors don't answer phones. This one did. And he said, oh, so you met Mr. Kalowinski. Yeah, he had, and so I looked him up online. He had exactly what he said is exactly what the doctor said. And so I wrote the story, and next thing you know, it got picked up by several publications, and he got the word out. So he was right. God told him to find me, and I was going to help him get the word out, and he got the word out, and he sold many, many copies before he passed away. So, the moral of the story is this. Talk to me. Send me information. Don't be afraid. I need information. When Bob sends me something and says, hey, we have a speaker, like when you had that speaker, when you guys did the Zoom call. I forgot the name of the speaker.
Dean Koontz.
Yes, Dean Koontz. So what did I do? I'm like, this guy's known nationally. So I added to that. I did my own research. I even reached out to him. He didn't answer me. But there was a story, and I need that. So now we're going to go on to our presentation here. Okay, so thank you very much again for inviting me. We're going to start off. The question is, what is the future of journalism? And by the way, I am going to speak fast because I have a lot of information, and I don't want to, it's 5 o'clock and I'm still on page 2. All right, so the question is, what's happening? What is the future of journalism and news reporting? Now, I'm going to illustrate where we're going, journalism-wise, by taking you on a history of music. So, over the, last 100 years, well, actually since the beginning of time, we have gotten our music several different ways. The first I can imagine is we all sat around a fire and somebody beat on a drum or had a wind instrument. That's how we got our music, okay? So it was either sitting around a fire or somebody had a concert, and then one day somebody invented the phonograph, the record player. And then we had the records. This is Power Play, by the way, from 1980. 1980. This is a K-Tel. Remember the K-Tel commercials? K-Tel. This is Call Me from Blondie. Call Me from Blondie is on here. Heartbreaker from Pat Benatar. Any Way You Want It. That's the Journey's on here. Cool Change, We Don't Talk Anymore by Cliff Richard, Jane. Dun 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 dun. My. Thank you. That's on here too. How many of you on a daily basis still listen to records on a daily basis? One. Daily basis. On a daily basis, you take out the vinyl and you put it on the turntable and you do the thing with the needle. How many? Daily? Daily? Nobody. Okay, great. Then after that, I believe we have one of these things, the cassette. No, cassette was early. 2 years earlier, yeah. Yes, I thought it was the 8-track. All right, so this is actually Simon and Garfunkel. Mrs. Robinson is on here. I wore out so many Earth, Wind, and Fire, the Commodores, the Rocky theme, anyway, I had a 1977 Datsun pickup truck, and this is all I played. Kool and the Gang, anyway. All right. And the first album that I wore out was, oh my goodness, it was Rapper's Delight by the Sugar Hill Gang. I said a hip, hop, a hippie to the hip, hip, hop, you don't stop a rockin' to the bang, but yeah, that one. Wore it out. Now we come to the 8-tracks. This, I actually got online and I said, hey, does anybody have an 8-track that I can borrow for my presentation? And somebody said, when do you need to buy? And I said, Saturday. Well, my wife I love my wife. Her name is Lynn. She's fantastic. We've been married for almost 35, 36 years, something like that. We've been actually together for 40 years. She goes, hey, look what I found. A collection, your collection of 8-tracks. This is the original 8-track from 45 years ago that I put into my 1969 Galaxy 500 as I drove on Highway 18 at Apple Valley High School. Earth, Wind, and Fire, the best of Earth, Wind, and Fire, Volume 1. Got to get you into my life. Dun, 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 dun. This is it. I remember putting this in, listening to it while I was waiting to get gas during the gas shortage of the 70s. All right? Anybody else listen to these on a daily basis? No? All right. CDs. I think more of us listen to CDs. This is ELO. ELO CD. Somebody gave this to me. I have to be honest, I've never listened to this CD, but there's a CD, and we have tons of CDs. All right? And then we went to the little iPod, the little tiny iPod. First it was like an MP3 player, and then it was an iPod. Okay? And I'll be very honest with you, all of these have not been used in years, some in decades. If I had a record player, maybe I might pull this thing out, maybe, just to listen to it. But you know what I would go back to? I go back to this. That journey right there is the same thing as happening in the newspaper industry right now. Some people are reading the daily press, some people are reading the newspaper, but not like they used to. All right, so, here we go. All right. So the same place most people get their music is the same place most people get their news, the internet, on a desktop, on a tablet, or on a cell phone. Newspapers are dying. They are dying. Print media is dying. Despite a growing recognition of the problem, the U.S. continues to see newspapers die at the rate of 2 per week. According to a report issued in July 2022, the Associated Press reported an estimated 75,000 journalists worked in newspapers in 2006, and now that's down to 31,000. Annual newspapers revenue slipped from $50 billion to $21 billion in the same period. By the way, this is all from the Associated Press. News deserts, they're called news deserts, are growing. The report estimated that some 70 million Americans live in a county with either no local news organization or only one. That's it. All right. These are out of order, but that's okay. All right, so let's talk about the current state of the daily press. Current state of the daily press. Again, we only have one reporter, Jose Quintero. We have Charlie McGee, who's partially funded by Report for America, and the other part is Gannett, who I work for, Gannett / the USA Today Network. And by the way, I love using the phrase, because they say you're a USA Today Network reporter. Now, I've covered stories in LA and Las Vegas. And when I say, hi, I'm with the Daily Press, can I interview you, please? Can I get 5 minutes to talk to you? They're like, no, not really. I was at a StarWars convention last year. And I'm like, hi, I'm with the USA Today Network. Was wondering if I could score an interview. Absolutely, USA Today Network, come on down. You are the next contestant on The Price is Right. So that kind of works a little bit. All right, so one reporter to cover nearly 500,000 people. Already told you the range. Our print subscribers are, I'm going to say, probably less than 7,000. When I started, we were into the thousands and thousands and thousands of subscribers. Why is it dying? The internet. The internet. Guess where our newspaper is printed at? Anybody know? Anybody know? Arizona. Arizona is absolutely right. Arizona.
Oh my God.
It's printed in Arizona, and they drive the papers here, and we deliver them. We used to have a printer. The printer literally was from this stage to the back wall, and probably 10 feet wide. It was massive, and probably almost the height of the ceiling. And that thing used to crank out papers. All right, most of our editors live in Central and Northern California. And by the way, I just want to let you know, just like me, I have a passion to write. I don't leave because I love what I do. And I'm going to say I have great bosses. And I'm not just saying this because we're live. I'm serious. These guys, women, men, they are passionate about informing the people, getting good quality information, content out. That's why today, I mean, like I said, I got that information about Kerr and the Department of Justice. I could have been like, oh, sorry, I'm off today. Let somebody else get it. No, so there's people that are also off that are on top of that story because we feel a commitment to do this. Back when I started working for the Daily Press, we must have had 20 reporters. We had, I don't know, 6 people working in classified. We had a ton of people working in advertising. Right now we have less than 8 people. And the Daily Press building was sold years ago, and we lease a portion of it, as do many, many newspapers across the country. Newspaper carriers are outsourced to another company. They're outsourced to another company. One day, by the way, I've worked from home since the pandemic because there's nobody working at the office anymore. And by the way, I live in Apple Valley, and it's a lot quicker to get to news stories from Apple Valley than it is from the other side of Victorville. It's just, you get there like, when that lady that was drowning, the lady that was stuck in the river, I got there in 5 minutes. I was the only news organization that saw them. She was coming towards me. They were carrying her. And I was literally from here to the podium when they walked by. And the first thing I thought is, I hope they're not dead. I hope, number one, we do not need loss of life. And number two, I am not going to put a photo of a dead person in the Daily Press. That's not going to happen. Sure enough, they put her in an ambulance, and she opened her eye and looked at me. She was just like, I was waiting for her to say, make sure you get my good side. Well, we got it. Got there quickly. So let's talk about newspaper. How do you get your paper? Once it gets delivered to the Daily Press, how do you get it? So one day, I was looking out the window, and this old beat-up pickup truck comes to the front of the house, and a door opens. It's an old, small pickup truck, and a door opens, and this gentleman steps out. Actually, I found out it was a gentleman. Actually, he opened the door. He put out one leg, and it had a slipper on the end of it. And he was wearing pajama bottoms. He had an oxygen mask on. He had oxygen on his nose. And he opened the door. I'm not making light of his physical condition. He took the paper like this and just dropped it like that and drove away dragging his leg. And I told my wife, I go, that's our newspaper person. So, 5 days later. Oh, and by the way, our carriers are not, they're not hired by the Daily Press. They're outsourced. They're another company. So if you have a late paper, you didn't get it, don't call us. I mean, you can call us, but it's like we have to talk to them. They're not, we do not. They don't work for us. We do not actually individually hire them. It's outsourced. It's another group that does it. So, this guy comes in, also about 80 years old. Comes into the Daily Press. He comes into the lobby and everybody can hear him. I want to talk to somebody. I don't want to talk to somebody about my paper. I can't believe it. So, the circulation guy comes out. And by the way, our circulation guy quit because every day he would get numerous phone calls and visits from people that were angry about not getting their paper, not getting it delivered correctly. So the guy goes, and he goes, let me tell you something. You need to tell these young whippersnappers to get their act together. You know, these young kids out of high school and college, they don't even know how to work. How come they can't get out of the car and walk to the front door and drop my blankety-blank paper on the front door? And I wanted to go out there and go, let me tell you about one of those young whippersnappers who's probably on several different type of medications. You know, this is not 1970 anymore. In 1970, my friend Peter and I would get up and go to the Daily Press and get in the back seat or the bed of his mom's truck, and we would throw papers at Tatum Track. Or, you know, we would throw papers. That's how it used to be in 1970. It's not that way anymore. Somebody recently reached out to me and said, hey, I was wondering if you can write this story. I was an author, and I'm like, I don't have time. Well, and so they were just like asking me, well, can you do this? Can you do this? I go, I have no time. I have no time. So this individual offered me money to write the story, to publish his story. And the first thing I thought was, money is not going to add 5 more hours to my day. I don't have time. I don't. All right, so how did we get here? In 2010, we had a vibrant newsroom with about, like I said, 15 reporters, an on-site publisher, multiple editors, a large copy desk, advertising, classified circulation, accounting. There must have been 50, 60, 70 people in the Daily Press. Again, we only have about 8 now. 2015, Gatehouse purchased the Daily Press, and there was a disturbance in the force because we discovered that they were going to literally lay off all the copy desk. And the copy desk basically is, you work on the first section, the A section. All the stories come to you, and you lay out the format, the banner, the masthead, where everything is going to go in the paper. It's like a puzzle, and then that's done. And you will do the B section. They're all gone. There's Gannett has I think it's in Texas somewhere. All of our stories go to Texas, and they lay the paper out for us. That's why, in the past, you have seen, and my wife is the first one to say, hey, how come there's one story on A1 and the same story on A8? Now, when things happen, when we're told that you're only going to be printing on Thursdays and Saturdays, and by the way, they did tell us that. They rescinded that, and we didn't do it. But they told us we were going to do that. All of that comes from what I call the mothership back east. They tell us what to do. They're the ones that say, we're taking this out, we're not going to put this in, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. Now, the good thing is that they have never told me you can't write like this and you can't write like that, you know, so I basically still kind of have the freedom to write how I do in my own style. So how did we get here again? In 2019, Gatehouse and Gannett merged. By the way, when Gatehouse came, they laid off a bunch of people. Then when Gannett took over, they laid off a bunch of people as well. All right, so last round of layoffs. Pointer News announced in August of 2022 that Gannett, the nation's largest newspaper chain with more than 200 papers, executed, I like that word, executed, a round of layoffs starting August 12th, a week after the company announced its second quarter results, a loss of $54 million on revenues of $749 million. About a week after the layoffs, the CEO of Gannett told staff in a company-wide meeting that Gannett had laid off 3% of its U.S. workforce, roughly 400 people. The company had also cut 400 open positions. In December of 2022, they laid off another 6% of the workforce. And on the last 2 weeks of December, I took 5 unpaid days, forced unpaid days. Couldn't work, couldn't do anything. Couldn't. So, the internet, digital subscribers. We went to, back in September, we went, I think it was 2021, we went to a subscriber-based online website. So, you can read a certain amount of stories, but after you read 5, you have to pay for the subscription. And there are some that you can't read 5 and get to it. You have to subscribe in order to get the paper. All right? So, in 2020, at the end of 2020, how many views did all of our stories get on our website? Can anybody tell me? Nobody has ever gotten even close. 10,000, no, keep going.
400,000. 45,000.
Not 45,000.
100,000.
0. Million?
A million? Keep going.
Wow.
5 million?
Keep going. 15.1 million people. When people tell me nobody reads the daily press, I want to slap them. Because people read the daily press, I know. Because they've contacted me when things go right and things go wrong. My stories have been read by people on 5 out of 7 continents, including people like Jimmy Kimmel, comedian Kevin Hart, Rams quarterback Vince Ferragamo, World Series MVP David Eckstein, and his wife, Star Wars actress Ashley Eckstein, who's the voice of Ahsoka Tano. Academy Award winners, developers, singers, Olympic athletes, they've all contacted me about a story. Each one of them. The one with Jimmy Kimmel was really interesting because I was watching, I don't really watch it on television, but somebody said, hey, there's a lady from Victorville on here. She's an older lady, and what they did, she was walking down the streets like Hollywood Boulevard, and they said, would you like to be part of a game show? We're going to pitch you up against somebody who's 15 years old, and you each are going to answer questions from each other's cultures or your timeline. So the guy or the girl who's in 15 or early 20s were asked things about, you know, actors and actresses and things that happened in the 30s and 40s and 50s. And the senior citizen, this lady who's like in her 80s, got questions like current events, movies, you know, who's a social media influencers. She won numerous times and she started becoming a favorite. And I'm like, who's this lady? So I did a little research and come to find out that she lived in Victorville, of course. I found out where she lived because I got on Facebook and I'm like, hey, anybody know her? Yeah, she's one of my friends. This is where she lives. I'll get you the phone number. I call her, I go to her house, and come to find out, she's a World War II veteran. How come, wow, let's write a story. Her living room is filled with old flags and maps of where she was stationed, and I'm like, this is amazing. So I wrote this story about this woman and how she's a World War II veteran. So, a couple days later, Jimmy Kimmel goes up there and goes, hey, so the other day, we'll just call her Clarice. Clarice was reading the paper the other day and read about Clarice, our lady on the street. I didn't know she was a World War II veteran. Well, she's here tonight and we're going to honor her. Anybody else write about that? No, I'm it. But nobody reads the daily press. I wrote a story about an Olympic athlete. A lady, her dad, her grandfather was part of like the Hungarian Olympic team back in the 40s or 50s or something. Somebody called me from Europe and said, can I talk to him? I was also on the team. So I've got Jimmy Kimmel calling me. I got Vince Ferragamo, the quarterback for the Rams, the former quarterback from the Rams, calling me. They've read my stories. They read the daily press. When people tell me nobody reads the daily press, I want to go crazy. People read it. All right. Again, as 2021, we had meter paywalls. This is the other thing, too, that just gets me. I love what I do, and I love what I work. I do not like subscription-based. I can't. I just don't like it. And the reason being is this. When I used to write a story, I had thousands of people okay, is there a time limit here?
If you can find a stopping point, we'd like to take a break for 15 minutes.
Sure, okay. Okay, he told me that 5 people need to pee. I'm not going to mention the people that need to pee. I won't mention them. All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and zip through this real quick. Okay, here we go. So how do I cover? What do I do? Some of the stories that I cover. Because somebody asked me, well, can you cover everything? I can't. I can't cover everything. There are things happening even right now that I just can't cover. So I've told this story a zillion times. In fact, I used to call my presentation, "Your Cat's Gonna Die." That's the presentation. And why is that? A couple of years ago, I was covering a fire out here in Apple Valley. One of the fire captains said, "Hey, Rene, how come the Daily Press isn't writing as many stories as you used to?" And I said, well, let me tell you a story. These numbers are going to be wrong, but just humor me. The town of Apple Valley said, say you have 100,000 people. Let's just say there's 100 employees with the Apple Valley Fire Protection District. You guys have 50 engines, water tankers, things of that nature. And you guys have 5 stations, including the one just across the street. Now, double the population of Apple Valley. Go down to 1 station, you only have 10 firefighters and only 2 vehicles. Now, right now, there is an accident on the corner of Apple Valley and Bear Valley Road. 6-car accident, 5 people are in critical condition. At the same time, you have an apartment complex on the other side of Apple Valley. 1,000 people live there, it's on fire, and 400 people are trapped inside. Quick, what do you do? I go, I know what you're gonna say. And he said, the apartment complex, why? More people's lives are involved. And what's gonna happen to the people in the accident? They just might die. And will you ever have time to stop and save cats that are stuck in trees? And he said, no, those cats more than likely will stay up there and die. I go, that's my predicament. Yours is a life and death predicament, not mine. Mine is, do I cover the story about Rich Kerr? Or do I cover the story about the lady that's stuck in the river and everybody and their grandmother is there trying to get her out? Which one do I cover? Which one? Hurry up, I need to make that announcement. I need to make that decision. Now it's like, what is going to affect the most people? So, am I ever going to write a story about Aunt Martha and her tamale recipe? Probably not. But if Aunt Martha writes the story about the tamale recipe and sends me pictures of the tamales and maybe even sends me a tamale, the story will go in the paper. So that is where I'm at. Now, the future. We're just going to end this and then you guys can all go to the bathroom. The future. And then when you guys come back, we can do question and answers. The future. Let me tell you what the future of the paper is. This is the future of the paper. The print paper. This is its future. Now, did Earth, Wind, and Fire stop making music?
No.
No. Where are they putting it at? Online. That's where we're going. Somebody once said this a long time ago. I don't know who said it. Those who adapt, live. Those that don't, die. It's simple. Why is Amazon thriving? Because people like Toys R Us said, will you deliver our toys for us? Sure, we'll be happy to deliver your toys for you. What happened to Toys R Us? Gone. What's happening to Amazon? Well, not now. That's a different story. They're growing. Walmart survived. Want to know why? Because they have a great e-commerce platform. They survived. So, a couple things. Okay, so again, and somebody wants to, well, I'm not going to go there, but anyway, I'm going to go ahead and tell you this right now. Somebody told me, bless you, off the record, this is what somebody told me. They told me that if you ever let go, it'll be because there's no more daily press. That's what they said. More than likely, if we let you go, there will be no more daily press to work at. So am I going to sit there and go, what do I do? What do I do? Well, let's see. I know how to do websites. I know how to take pictures. I know how to do podcasting. I know how to write, and I know how to edit. Hey, I got an idea. Why don't I start my own news group and cut the middleman and put it up online? Other people are doing it. BB&G is doing a great job. They're all over the place. Now, just like a lot of news organizations, I don't approve 100%, but they do a great job. They provide a service, and they're growing. When I go do an interview, the first thing people ask me, like, are you with BB&G? No, Daily Press. They do a great job. BB&G does a great job. They work hard. I told the owner, I said, do you guys ever sleep? These guys are killing it. Independent. Independently owned, make your own decision. Independence brings freedom. Freedom allows you to do what you want to do on your own terms. How come you think all these doctors are breaking away from these medical groups and starting their own practices? I mean, they're flying solo. Nurses are doing the same thing. Writers are doing the same thing. Oh, do I have to go to the publishing house to get my book published anymore? Not anymore. You can self-publish, which means you're publishing yourself, hence the phrase self. You're doing it yourself. You're saving money. You're doing it yourself. So, I support Gannett. I love what I do. I love the company that I work for. But they are a corporation. And they're there to do one thing, make money. So, the Daily Press technically is doing great. It's the mothership in a whole that needs help. So we're the ones that are suffering. So, God bless Gannett. God bless USA Today. I'm thankful that I have a job every single day. And with that, we're going to go ahead and take a break. And then when you guys come back, we'll have questions and answers if you would like. So, have at it. Again, I would encourage you, if you are a writer, get your information online. Because there are days where, like, this happens all the time. A publishing house will say, it's a random press release that says, hey, somebody in your neighborhood just wrote a book. And you're like, oh, that's cool. And it's a little snippet. Julie Smith from Victorville wrote a book about, I don't know, a zombie apocalypse or whatever. You know, to buy the book, do this. I don't want to buy the book. I want to talk to her. So now I have to go and I have to look through Facebook and jump through all the hoops to try to find this author, and 9 out of 10 times they are nowhere online except for Amazon. Now, how am I supposed to write about this author's information if they do not exist? So, I would encourage you, if you are a writer, doesn't matter how old you are, if you're a writer, start a Facebook page, get a website going, get a Twitter going, get it out there. Because people ask me, how do you get news? There's a couple of different ways. Number one, I will have, like my friend this morning who said, hey, did you hear about this story about what happened in Atlanta? That's one way. The other way is, of course, press releases. The San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department does a great job. They get an A+ for information, not just in getting information to me, but replying. When I have questions, they'll tell me. If they can tell me, they tell me. So the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department does a great job. The San Bernardino County Fire Department, Apple Valley Fire Protection District, they do a great job getting information. If they can get it out, they'll get it out. City of Victorville, there's a woman there by the name of Sue Jones. She is, I call her the queen of public information officers. Because not only does she send me information, she'll write it. And it's like, oh, thank you. That whole story about everything that's coming to Victorville in 2023, it was just, I had to go in there and put it AP style, but she wrote most of it with photos. And I was like, this is what I need. So I encourage you, you need to go out there and do the work. Promote yourself. Push yourself out there. I had a photographer one time, young girl calls me up and says, Mr. De La Cruz, is it okay if I follow you to do stories? This was back in the day when there was following and there was no COVID and we were good. And I said, sure. So I said, hey, I'm going to be doing a high desert real estate convention. Come there, I'll meet you there, and let me tell you what I'm looking for. These are the photos I'm looking for. She did a great job. She did a great job. And then, but then I also have, and then she was aggressive, reaching out, and then I pointed her to some things. And then I have other people that are like, hey, is there any I'm starting a photography business, what should I do? You know? Or some people just say, I have a photography business. They don't have a website, they don't have anything on Facebook. And I said, here's what you're supposed to do. You, do what I do, before I was a reporter, before I wrote any story, when I had a video camera, we went to this big concert at Maverick Stadium. While everybody was in line, waiting for this concert to start, I think I was one of the few adults there. You know, I was an adult, but most of them were kids at this concert. I decided just to kind of like walk backstage. And next thing you know, I didn't know this band. The video is up, it's all on Facebook. And next thing you know, this guy comes around with a guitar and I'm like, he goes, hey, how's it going? I'm like, hey, how you doing? I go, you part of the band? Yeah, what's your name? It was the lead singer. I asked him some questions, I put it up on Facebook, it got thousands of views. Meanwhile, everyone was waiting in line. I wasn't with the press. I had a camera, and I asked questions. You're a writer. Go out there. Take pictures. Write your stories. Get yourself... Somebody always said, dress for the part that you want to be. Okay? Dress like, so if you want to be a business person, dress like a business person. If you want, get out there. That's exactly what BB&G is doing. Everybody's got a story to tell, they'll get it up right away. And that's why they're on top of things. And they work extremely hard. And again, I'm not going to sit here and say, well, don't follow them, follow us. I will never say that. People are going to get their content how they want to get their content. There are some people that are just like, they just read the daily press, that's all they do. I just do online. Or I just do print, and I encourage them to get online. Some people would say, oh, I don't do the internet, I don't do Twitter, I don't do Facebook, I don't do TikTok. If you can, move in those platforms. So anyway, that's who they are. They do a great job. They're continuing to grow. And, anyway, that's who they are. Yes?
I was wondering your opinion on the conversion from being a writer to Audible. However, there's a big push to make everything Audible instead of... And I just wanted to know...
You mean like a podcast or...
Yeah, Audible,
okay.
Stories, Audible...
So reading actually the story.
Yeah.
So the question is, my opinion, you want to know my opinion on either doing the trend of going from written to audio.
Podcast.
Okay, like a podcast. An audio book. Okay. Again, one more time. There are people, how many of you listen to podcasts? How many of you read a book while you're brushing your teeth? How many of you listen to a podcast while you're brushing your teeth? I do every morning. It's, podcasts are growing. But again, if you do a podcast, you need to start letting people go where the eyes are at. You know, hey, I got a podcast. Start interviewing. I mean, I had a podcast. I'm thinking of resurrecting. I had a podcast with over 100 interviews. And I was on SoundCloud. Bill Lopez will tell you. It was on SoundCloud. SoundCloud wasn't doing anything for me. But as soon as I went to Anchor, Anchor goes, we'll be happy to put it on Apple Music, and we'll be happy to put it on Spotify and Pandora. We'll be happy to put it on Google Play for free. So I'm like, hey, SoundCloud, it was nice knowing you, but we're breaking up. I know, it's me, not you. I'm out of here. So yes, I believe podcasting is really, really important. In fact, I just realized this, when I had my SoundCloud account, one of the highest listened to podcasts were two of them. Number one was from, let's go back to 1966. There was this girl who I was madly in love with. Her name was Teresa. She was 6 and I was 6, and we went to Victor Elementary School. So let's fast forward to 2000 and whatever, and she writes a book on her barrenness. She can't have children. I did a podcast. She's a teacher, a special eds teacher. We were in her classroom when I did the podcast, and I'm like, this is like bizarre that we're in a classroom. We first met in a classroom, and now we're doing an interview about the book that you just wrote. That was one of the one of the most listened to podcasts. There was another one. There was a lady named, I forgot her last name. Her name was Molly. She wrote a story. I did that podcast. I interviewed her at the Apple Valley Library. That was one of the most listened to. So there's a trend when, the podcasts that I've done, if it's about books, it's about a writer or something that, they're writing. And then what I do from the podcast, I write my story. And some people are going to read the story, and some people are just going to listen to the podcast. And some people are just going to read the headline and make up their own story. And that is another thing that's what people do now. People read headlines and they create their own stories. And nobody wants to pay for subscriptions. Nobody, I can't believe I have to pay? Yeah, I'm sorry, you're gonna have to pay $1 for a year to read the story. That's ridiculous. Oh, but you're gonna go to McDonald's and buy your $10 Big Mac and your $8 cup of coffee at Starbucks. Well, I don't believe in paying for papers. I remember one time when we first went to the subscription thing, I'm like, do you think that I work for free? A really good friend of mine took my article, copied it, and put it up on Facebook. Not the story where you had to go to it, just copied it. And this is what I told her, in love, in private. Thanks, I really appreciate you supporting me, but stop stealing from me. So you write a book. You write a book. You spend thousands of dollars to get it published. And next thing you know, somebody copies it and starts sending it out.
Oh.
How do you feel about that? That's how I felt. I'm like, they took the entire, that's how I get paid. That's how I pay my rent and my gas and put food on the table, is through writing. I get paid. But no. So I told somebody who was complaining about it, I'm like, well, the next time you pay your Southern California Edison bill, I can't believe I have to pay for gas. It's ridiculous. I can't believe my doctor, my medical insurance is charging me this. All they did was just a simple procedure. Come on. Do you think a bunch of free people on their own time are writing stories? Do you think they're the ones that are climbing mountains, facing aggressive dogs, going down to the river when there's a fire and trying to get good pictures and trying to interview the people on the line? Do you think that I'm doing that for free? No, I'm not. It's my day off. There's a lady in the middle of the Mojave River. So what do? I put my clothes on. Well, I was in my pajamas. No, I wasn't in my pajamas. I was in my sweats. So here I am, getting my nice shoes all muddy, climbing down into the river. walking through the homeless encampment, you know, getting people that are aggressive down there. They don't want their picture taken. They're letting me know. I want to do that for free? No. I'm not, and you shouldn't either. You publish something, get paid for it. Now, there's some things that you should do for free. There's some things that you should do for free because it's the right thing to do. It's the right thing to do. There was a gentleman, there was a kid, 15 years old. His name was Chandler. He was riding his quad on New Year's Day. Standing Rock, out here in Apple Valley. He gets hit by a car. Fatally injured. He dies at St. Mary's Hospital. I pull up to go take a picture. I go, I wonder if there's a memorial. Sure enough, there's a memorial. I take a picture of the memorial. There's a dad and a little daughter on the handlebars. They came out to pay their respects. I was just about to leave, and the parents of Chandler pull up. And they walk out there, and his father goes, hey, I'm Chandler's dad. So I go to him, and they're both just devastated. So what do you think I did? Do you think I went into interview mode? If you lost somebody that you love, would you go into interview mode? Well, let me ask you, how did you feel when, no. You know what I ended up doing? I ended up praying for them. And I said, when you guys have a chance, can I have your number, and I'll call you when the time is ready. They said, give us 4 or 5 days, and we'll do it. And 4 or 5 days later, we did it. And this is what I said, whatever you do, I'm going to probably get in trouble for this, don't contact the Daily Press for an obituary. Call me. We'll write a tribute story. So that's what I did. That's the right thing to do. That is the right thing to do. I've written stories when people have reached out to me and they're like, and I said, I don't have time to write this story, but I have to write this story. That's the cat stuck in the tree. I have to save that cat. I have to write that story. And I've written stories that it wasn't gonna, you know, it wasn't a big cataclysmic story, but that story needed to be told because it was the right thing to do. All right, anybody else? Yes, sir.
Could you recall one of the situations or some time where you had a story killed and you believed in it, and what you went ahead and did to finally get it published or?
Can I recall a time that I had a story and I was ready to put it out and it was killed? Sure. Several of them. Number one, there was a local group here. This was years ago, over a decade ago. They said, hey, do you realize that they're putting GMOs in food? They're putting chemicals in food. So there was a group that was totally against it. I wrote a whole story. I reached out to Monsanto. They had a whole press release on, yeah, that's what we do. We put weed killer inside the seed so that it grows. It kills from what I remember, it kills the weeds. I wrote the story. My boss goes, that's conspiracy theory. The company admits it. Conspiracy. There was 7 stories. I don't remember the other ones. There were 7 stories that I had. This is over a decade ago. I had these 7 stories. And the moment he left, I republished them. And they all ran. Yeah. Now, over the last, 7, 8 years, that has not happened. There was one time we were so desperate for copy, I told my wife, I could write stories about Twinkies every day, and they would be like, how they're packaged, the different flavors, somebody made a Christmas tree out of it, a dog named Twinkie, somebody decorated their Christmas tree with nothing but Twinkies, and they would have just published it because we needed content so bad. I joke around about that, but yeah, so right now, I mean, everybody working for and with the Daily Press and all the other papers are doing a great job. I mean, hats off to all the journalists. They do a fantastic job. They love what they do, even under duress and the things that they deal with. Yes?
If someone wanted to, myself, wanted to write a story and give it to you, it had nothing to do with my book or whatever, do you take things like that?
Okay, so you said if you had a story and you gave it to me,
Yes.
yes. Well, it all depends. Now, here's the deal, okay? There was a gentleman here earlier that told me that he had a story, and that it would be perfect for Black History Month. It's a perfect story. What's the High Desert connection? He is the High Desert connection. He lives here. But if it's a story, hey, I got a great story about something that happened in Minnesota, there's no connection, nobody's connected there, I'm not gonna write that story. I get at least 20 to 25 press releases every day from people out of state with a great story, but I'm like, this is a great story, but it has nothing to do with the High Desert. Nothing. But if it has to do with the High Desert, and it's well written, and it's got, you know, like I said with all the writers, if you give me all the content and it's almost a plug and play thing, then 9 out of 10 times it's going to go in the paper. 9 out of 10 times it will. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
As you shared, the actual print number of papers is going down and down and down. How does it compare to digital subscriptions?
Well, the number that I quoted from 2020 is we had 15.1 views of all the stories, and our subscribers right now, the last time I heard, was under 7,000. 7,000 papers actually, for some people that have subscribed to the actual paper itself. So we are killing it online. I mean, people are reading it from all over the place. And some story, let me tell you some of the stories that are most well read. People don't like stories about politics. They don't. If it's the quirkier, the better. Quirky, weird, has to do with kids, dogs, shooting, a fire, or food, or something that's being built. People go crazy about that. So what needs to happen, and I told this in jest, I said, there needs to be a story about this little kid that was stuck next door to a brand new restaurant. They were stuck inside. The place was on fire, and a dog went in and rescued the kid, and the restaurant next door gave them free food. And it happened on Friday the 13th. People would go crazy for that. First District Supervisor Robert Lovingood decides that he is not going to run again. He's the district supervisor. That story gets written as I write the story about Popeye's new chicken sandwich. So, and this is what I do, and I've told people this before. When I write every day, I go, Lord, help me write the best story possible, get me to the right people, or have them contact me. And 10 out of times, I've had people out of nowhere just call me and go, oh my goodness, I need that story. So I go to Popeyes, and there's this line that is at least 80 cars long to get a fried chicken sandwich. And I'm like, okay. I said, all right, Lord, help me out. So I walk by, and this lady is in this really nice car. She rolls down the window. And she goes, hi, who are you? And I'm like, I'm with the Daily Press. And I'm like, and who are you? And she goes, my name is, let's just say Loretta. I'm in line to get a sandwich for my mom, who's turning 100. Thank you, Jesus. Do you have a picture of your mom on the phone? Yes. Can you hold it up? Thank you. So there's a picture of a lady with her mom. She shows the picture of her mom, and the front line, one of the headlines is, Loretta, whoever from Victorville, waits 5 hours in line to get a chicken sandwich for the 100-year-old mom. Aww. All right? That story got, oh, I don't know, 50, 60, 70, 80,000 views in a couple of hours. And the Robert Levengood story had about 100. We've had corruption. This Rich Kerr thing, people are going to go like, we've seen that before. But if I write a story about the pancake plug over here, or a new taco that somebody came out with, or a new taco truck, that story is going to get read a zillion times. So, any other questions? I'm going to have to wrap up. 2 more questions and that's it. Yes, sir.
I couldn't write down your email fast enough on my, I'm trying to use my phone like you recommended.
Who has my email? Anybody have his email? Good. Please give it to him. Okay, we still have 2 questions. Did you have a question?
Yeah, as you've spoken here, I've started thinking about how the world, it's changed so much that it's almost like when Gutenberg invented the printing press, only on a bigger scale.
Yes.
And I was thinking, okay, does Jimmy Kimmel have a subscription to the Victor Valley Daily Press? No.
More than likely, what happened? No.
And that's what's changed.
Yeah.
He doesn't get up every morning and say, oh, I think I'm going to read the Victor Valley Daily
His
Press.
team does it.
Right, but they don't even read the whole thing.
Yeah. No, they more than likely what they do, what a lot of people do is they put in keywords, and the moment that word comes up, they're like, what's that about? Oh, she was on our show. And then they tell Jimmy, and then they go from there.
They know she's from Victorville. And,
Yes.
You know,
That's how it works. There was a story years ago, Girl Scouts, Phelan, Stater Brothers, somebody went in and stole $500. I mean, literally ran by and took all their money. I wrote the story. So then they had a press conference. I go out to the story, and next thing you know, I get out there, and there is the ABC van, NBC, CBS, Telemundo, and I'm like, so I go up there, take some pictures, and this guy named David Rascone from NBC, the guy is an international journalist. I think he lives in Texas now. He worked for NBC here local. He goes, hey, you're Rene De La Cruz, aren't you? And I'm like, yeah. And he goes, oh, so you're the guy that wrote the story. And I'm like, what story? And he goes, the reason why everybody's here is because of your story. And I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, let me tell you how network television works, or news works. We subscribe to the Orange County Register, the LA Times, the Pasadena whatever, and the Daily Press, and we look for stories that are compelling, and then we go cover them. Everybody knows your name in the newsroom. Like, what? And that's what they do. That's what they do. And you're absolutely right. That's how things work now. That's why when I write a story about somebody wrote a book, and it has to do with, you know, like that gentleman that just left about, you know, he wrote a story, it's a story about a church in South Carolina. Somebody from South Carolina is going to read that. Or maybe the newspaper there is going to pick it up, or their television station is going to pick it up. That's how things work nowadays. You get your little bit of information out there, and it might spread like wildfire, and then or it might not. One last question, and then we're done, because I just told I was going to get fined. And that is it. Again, thank you very much for having me. I really, really appreciate it. I personally would like to come back to help you, not talk about myself, but to help you to get your information out there.